Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Is the Post Office Horizon scandal the biggest thing that's hit the UK in the last year or two? Stay tuned to find Gary Winters and my thoughts on this topic. Experience the future of convenience with modern Expo parcel lockers. Cutting-edge innovations that bring parcel delivery to a fundamentally new level. Follow the link in the description to find the best solution for your business. Hello, Gary. We're going to cover something a bit different today. It's going to be Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Do you want to
I didn't know you could get ITV in Poland, Marek. This is interesting.
Well, to be fair, I got a sort of tip from a buddy of mine that you know quite well. What's the story, though? Because this is quite a hot topic.
Oh, this is an immense story. It's interesting that it's taken an ITV drama series starring Toby Young to bring this to the public, to the height of public awareness. But this is a story that's been rumbling on, would you believe, since 2000, when the Horizon system was first introduced into the post office.
What's the backstory? My understanding from the outside is basically that something like 700 sub-postmasters have been taken to, I think, criminal court for alleged theft of funds that they didn't take. And then talking to you, I gather that actually they tried to prosecute even more.
Well, this is an endemic failure of an IT project. The Fujitsu were commissioned by the post office back in the late 90s, early 2000s to make a brand new system for post office counters. I remember the number of £800 million, but it might have even been £1 billion project. That's back in the days when £1 billion was a lot of money. It was rolled out to kind of 14,000 post offices at the time. Now would have been now 11,500. But it was a flawed project, and the system started creating shortfalls. So it would show that when the postmaster had to cash up at the end of the day, it would show that their till was short, and the deficits would be huge. Sometimes it would be hundreds and indeed thousands, and over a period of time, cumulatively tens of thousands of pounds. Post office took the view that this was entirely the responsibility of the person running the post office. They'd signed a contract saying that they took on personal responsibility for any losses, and post office denied that there was anything wrong with Horizon at all. They described it as a robust system, and when the post office owners attempted to reconcile their books, they would just demand that they paid the shortfall. So, yes, you're right. It was over 700 prosecutions, but over 3,000 people were accused of these shortfalls.
And generally, just for the benefit of those who don't live in the UK or understand quite how it works there, if I'm not mistaken, these guys would be basically effectively like licensees or franchisees who work on behalf of the post office.
Yeah, so you take on a post office franchise, you're paid a salary by the post office for running the branch, and then your responsibility is to collect the cash and hand out the stamps, basically. The other interesting thing about this is that the prosecutions didn't undergo like the same level of scrutiny as a normal criminal prosecution. On a law based over 300 years ago, the post office is able to bring the prosecution themselves. So we have an organisation in the UK called the Crown Prosecution Service. So any prosecution typically brought in a criminal case goes through the CPS. The CPS look at it in two elements: weight of evidence, public interest. And if the two things balance out, that there's sufficient evidence and it's in the public interest to bring the prosecution, then they do so. Those checks and balances weren't done either. The post office could take you straight to criminal court.
So basically, up to 700 people's lives were potentially ruined, and perhaps many more had, delicately speaking, had the sword of Damocles above their heads.
Well, I mean, the others were probably avoided prosecution by paying the shortfall back. So people talk about losing their life savings, selling their homes, cashing out their pensions in order to pay off these debts. It wasn't just lives ruined, Marek, it was lives lost. At least 4 of these postmasters took their own lives under the pressure of the prosecution that was coming to them from the post office.
So the learning basically, because, what can we draw from this? When you get a situation that, yes, you have something that is evidently wider than just a couple of individual cases, someone should take a step back, and clearly in this case nobody was prepared to do that.
Well, there were 2 big lies told. So the one lie that was told was that it was impossible for the accounts to be accessed remotely, for individual branch post office accounts to be accessed remotely. This was proven in court to be a lie. Fujitsu employees could access those accounts to the point that they could actually make manual adjustments to the accounts while the postmaster was working inside the program. So in front of people's eyes, the figures were being changed remotely. And they denied the ability to do that in court for year after year after year. The other huge lie, which is the personal lie, which is really damaging, is whenever these guys were phoning up the helpline, the Horizon helpline run by Fujitsu, and saying, I've got a problem, I can't get my books to balance, they were told, you're the only one that's reporting these issues. So they were made to feel like they were alone. And if you're not a supercomputer whiz, or you're not 100% literate on how the system's going to work, you probably believe that and feel you were doing something wrong. So the personal pressure that a lot of these people felt was catastrophic. So it took Alan Bates, who was one of the most stubborn people in Britain, and proudly so, wouldn't sign off his accounts, wouldn't accept that he'd made any errors, and he pursued it to the end of time. And he is the hero of the story who's come out and proved the lies being told by the post office.
In fact, it's probably a little bit wider. So on one hand, you've got the Horizon or Fujitsu people who have apparently told a few pork pies, and then on top of that, you've got the management at the post office who weren't prepared to support their own people and stand by them.
Well, and then you've got an entire organisation standing behind these lies. So as soon as somebody says no, but the system is robust and there are no errors, that's the company's stance, and everybody sort of implied they have to stand behind it. So there was a wall of silence coming out, and it took a hugely doggedly determined campaign to prove that this was the case. It has been reported that this is the greatest miscarriage of British justice in history.
Wow. Well, look, I'll tell you something. It's almost, impossible to believe that so many people could have been mistreated for so long. But I think it's definitely a learning. I hope that, it's the last story of this nature we'll have, because when you think about it, this whole postal area in the UK hasn't gone too well. It's a subject for a separate vlog. But, let's be very honest, the whole Royal Mail privatisation, the split for Royal Mail and Post Office, because for those who are not so close to the UK postal scenario, it was actually split, wasn't it, Gary? That the Royal Mail was privatised. The Post Office, because of its infrastructure, stayed in government hands.
Well, and the fact that it relies on government subsidy. So it's got a single shareholder, which is the UK government, that funds it. It's decreasing the funding over time, but it is funded. The other interesting about this is about brand. Now, whenever you see these surveys where they ask what are the most trusted brands in a country, Post Office and Royal Mail were always seen as the most trusted brand in the UK, above the Church of England, a long way above the police, above the government, above charities, above everybody else. They were the number one trusted brand. How would that survey look today if they reran the numbers and asked people, do you trust the post office? I can tell you now, if you pick up a newspaper, listen to the radio, watch the TV, the post office brand is absolutely trashed.
Well, look, I think, it's an incredible story. Let's see how it finally ends. The good news is that the guys who shouldn't have been held responsible clearly now vindicated. I just wonder what the learning is going to be and what sort of the final result will be. I think it could be a good topic for a further vlog at some future stage. Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.